Good morning, and welcome to Dawn with Tim Grange. I see quite a few of you are up and running. Normally, Patronella, Amo, um, Johnny, so good to have you all here. Who else? Who else? Tabby, Mamani, Becky, Noxie, India. It's so awesome to have you guys here. I don't take it for granted. Let's quickly share this, put it on platforms so that people will come. I know I say this all the time, but I say this because some of us don't think it's important. It is important. If it blesses you, it will bless others. If it blesses others, it will bless even more people. And it means that we're getting God's counsel out. Um, for those of you that missed yesterday's devotion, we began to talk about our quiet time. And we looked at the fact of four things that you could do to just enhance your quiet time. I'm not going to dwell on that, but I really would strongly advise that you go watch what I said there, because it will bless you. It will help you. It simplifies the whole concept of the quiet time. Today, I had mentioned yesterday that I was also today going to talk about continue the thought on quiet time and talk about something I refer to as the 15-minute switch. And then it occurred to me that I've actually dealt with this before. And if you go on my YouTube channel, you have to back up quite a bit. You will see a devotion where I think, titled it the 15-minute switch. And it will bless you. It's 15 minutes that you could spend on four different things that will eventually give you an hour of spiritual development. So with just 15 minutes at a time, nothing outlandish, nothing outrageous, nothing so overwhelming, just 15 minutes at a time, over spaced in four stages. In 1 hour, you would have started a process of such great divine growth that it will turn your world around. But because it's already there, I'm not going to talk on that. I'm going to instead push forward on the concept of the quiet time to emphasize the major purpose of our quiet time, the major purpose of dawn, the major purpose of going to church, the major purpose of having your own personal devotion with God is to bring you to a place where you become unconsciously conscious of the presence of God. I need to say this again. The whole idea of time with God is to bring you to a place where you become unconsciously conscious of the presence of God. When I talk about the presence of God, it's actually difficult for me to explain. How do I explain the love of my wife and the love for my wife? I could begin to talk to you about the things that she does for me or the things that I do for her. But all that will say to you is I do this for her. And then you have to take my word for it that I do it because I love her. But another person could do the same things for their spouse, and it could be out of duty, it could be out of coercion, and it could not even be out of love. It could be out of even manipulation. So two people could be doing the exact same thing, and the reason could be entirely different. And so it's actually very difficult for me to explain why I love my wife. I could mention things, but it's something that is so inbred in my heart. It's the same thing with the presence of God. Explaining the presence of God. Do I say that you suddenly feel goose pimples? People feel goose pimples for when there's a good movie on or a good song comes on. What will I say is because of the miracles that I have seen. All those things are offshoots of that, but they do not necessarily describe the presence of God. There is something about when you become conscious and hopefully and eventually unconsciously conscious of the presence of God that changes your life completely. It deals with the whole idea of fear. It deals with the whole idea of anxiety. It makes this world no longer become as important as we have made this world. It makes See, and this is so important. The reason why we get depressed, and the Lord had to deal quite strongly with me on this over the recent few years. The reason why mankind, even believers, get depressed, get frustrated, is because this world has become so important. What we achieve in this world, what we have in this world, how people view us in this world, what we drive, where we live, what we eat, our reputation, and how high we go in this world has become so important to us. Now that any compromise in this world, any shaking in this world shakes our faith, compromises our convictions. This world has become so important. That's another definition of materialism. Materialism, from a perspective, doesn't only mean when you are so particular about things and things have become your idol and your God. There is another belief system called materialism, which means this material world has become the definition of your reality. And so if this material world is compromised, if you lose this, if you gain this, when you lose something, there is a depression. When you gain something, there is an overt joy. And so even the devil knows that he needs to just push one of these buttons and your world will be thrown into chaos. When we become unconsciously conscious, consciously conscious, and then unconsciously conscious of the presence of God, the victories and the failures of this world no longer become particular to us. They no longer become overwhelming to us because we have become aware of a dimension that is greater than all of this. But the corollary to that, though, is the less conscious you are of the reality of this dimension and more conscious you are of the tangibility of the reality of God's dimension, the more this dimension becomes under your influence, comes more and more under your influence. The ability and the capacity for you to move in this dimension and to bend this dimension to fit the will of God, which should be your will, becomes a lot easier. And so the issue is the presence. Let me read a few scriptures to you. Let me quickly mention a few things. In Genesis 39 verse 2, talking about the presence of God, it says, and the Lord was with Joseph, and he was a prosperous man, and he was in the house of his master, the Egyptian. When you read this verse is an oxymoron. It says Joseph was prosperous, but he was in the house of his master. He was in the house of a slave master, but he was prosperous. Did you notice that because the presence of God was with him, it didn't matter where he was. It won't matter whether you are in Somalia, Mogadishu. It won't matter whether you are in South Africa with the increase of the Delta variant. There is something that the presence of God does in the heart and in the life of a person. It starts in the heart. Many of us want it to start in our lives, but it starts in our heart. When David began to practice the presence of God, nothing was changing around him. He was still the keeper of sheep. Nothing was changing. His family still regarded him as the least amongst them. He was still forgotten by his family. But he cultivated the presence of God, because the presence of God and your convictions of the presence of God, that God is actually with you, it does something first in your heart. It makes this world become unimportant, uninteresting. I'm serious. This world becomes completely uninteresting. And not that you become so heavily conscious and no earthly good, but you realize that this dimension is not the dimension of cause. This is the dimension of effect. You realize that there is a higher dimension, and you have been given the opportunity to relate with the God of the highest dimensions. There is something about becoming conscious of the presence of God. Look at what it says about Joseph. Even though his circumstances had not changed, even though he was still a slave, he began to prosper. So it will not matter what the economy is like. It will not matter how many people are getting the Delta variant. It will not even matter, God forbid, how many people are dying. Your case will just be different. But the truth is, that should not be the reason why you want the presence of God. When you really encounter the presence of God, it won't even matter if you die. That's the thing. See, we need to die to this world so that if need be, we can die for this world. Let me say it again. We truly, like Paul teaches us, need to die to this world so that if need be, we can actually die for this world. I know that sounds so outlandish. That sounds so outrageous. That sounds like I'm going off the reservation. And I understand how that can be so difficult for our sensibilities to accommodate. But it's the reality. When we die to this world, and this world no longer becomes our triggers, nothing in this world, whether the love of your spouse, whether the life or death of your child, when this world no longer becomes a trigger for you, it means then you have overcome this world. And as a result of that, your ability to influence this world escalates. Do you hear me? Your ability to influence this world just begins to escalate. But it all starts with becoming conscious of the presence of God. The whole idea of time with God is so that what God said to us, and let me read it to you in Isaiah 7:14. He says, therefore the Lord himself shall give you a sign, and this is the sign. It was talking about, this was given several generations before Jesus was born, and it was saying, this is the sign. A virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and shall call his name Emmanuel. He shall call his name. And you know what Emmanuel means? Emmanuel means God with us. Where you are conscious that God is with you. Whether you've prayed, you've not. Whether you fasted, you've not. Whether you woke up on the right side or on the wrong side of your bed or not. Where you are conscious that God is with you. I have a message. I don't know if it's on my Team Great channel or if it's on the City of Zion channel. I'm not sure. But I have a two-part series on one of these channels titled Cultivating the Presence of God. If you can find it and watch it, it will help you. I gave some insight, particularly in part 2, on how to make the presence of God a lot more tangible in your experience. When I say tangible, I actually mean tangible. Where when God, because God is everywhere, right? He's everywhere. So you don't need to invite the presence of God. What does that mean? I mean, if you're a believer and you are praying prayers like, Lord, the Spirit of God, we invite you, we ask that you will come into this place, that's ridiculous. It means also you have really not understood what it means to have Emmanuel, God with you, because you won't pray such prayers. So it's not about God asking the presence of God to come into your vicinity. No, it's about becoming conscious when the presence of God chooses to manifest. See, God is everywhere. But Jesus said, it is only what I see my Father do that I do. What does that mean? The Father is not always doing stuff. Everything the Father will do, he has already done. So what Jesus was saying there is, whenever God makes a now move, or he reveals a now move, I'm conscious of his presence, so I see it. I'm aware of his presence, so I see it. The reason why many believers are making wrong decisions, getting into financial chaos, losing things, even dying prematurely, is a lack of understanding of the presence of God. The more conscious we are of his presence, do you know the less sin we will commit? The more conscious we are of his presence, the more anointing we will display. The more conscious we are of his presence, the more we will experience the move of God, almost as though we're in a perpetual state of revival. Is somebody with me? The Bible speaking about Joseph says he prospered even while he was a slave. Let me read something else that was said. Let me see if I can find it. I'm not even sure if I put it here. I didn't put the scripture down. The Bible was talking about Solomon, and it talks about how Solomon, because the presence of God was with Solomon, it says that everybody came and gave him tribute. There is a mark that the presence of God places upon your life, that when you see honor coming your way, and people want to begin to talk about how you are such a great person and you are this and that, you have to tell them, you laugh. Because you understand that it has nothing to do with you. It is the mark of divine presence that is upon you. As I'm speaking to you, what I prayed on your behalf is that your consciousness will begin to become sharpened, to become aware that he is actually with you. Do you know, I put in on my Facebook post that the whole idea is to realize that he is with you, he is for you, he is with you, he is in you, and he is as you. Do you know that's the progression? You first become aware, and that's how he started with mankind. God with mankind, God with mankind. But he wanted to take it beyond there. Now he has. He has gone from just being God with us, which hasn't changed, it's still with us, to God in us. And now when you become aware of the God that is in you because of the God that is with you, you begin to realize that he stands as you. When you realize he is with you, and because he's with you, he's now in you, you then become awakened to the truth that you are as he is, that he stands as you are. Now that is such a big deal. When you see that you are as him, then you are no longer conscious of his presence. Even though you are, it becomes an unconscious consciousness of his presence. When last were you conscious? When last were you conscious of your ability to drive? It's no longer a consciousness, but it doesn't change the fact that you can drive, if indeed you can drive. You are now unconsciously conscious of your ability to drive. It doesn't take it away from that ability, but you are unconsciously conscious. Saints of God, children, children of the Most High, he needs you to become aware that when he says in Hebrews 13, let me read it to you, Hebrews 13 verse 5, let your conversation be without covetousness, and be content with such things as you have, for he hath said, I will never leave thee nor forsake thee. I will never leave thee nor forsake thee. You know, it starts out because you'll say, but why am I going through this? Someone watching now or watching later could say, but if God is with me, God is in me, God is as me, why am I going through this? Let me help you. It needs to start with you being aware that he is with you irrespective of whether you can see him or not, irrespective of whether you can hear him or not. See, I know you say, but it helps. I know all those things help, and those things will manifest. But you need to train your consciousness to accept that he is with you. Not that his presence is everywhere. We know God's presence everywhere. But that he is with you because he is for you. If you are born again, God is with you because God is for you. Let me say that again. If you are born again, you need to train your consciousness to accept that God is with you because he is for you. Because he could be with you, but not on your side. No. He says, if God be for us, who can be against us? That statement is so potent. There is such power there. That's one of the advantages of becoming conscious of the presence of God. If God be for me, if God is for you, it is because he is with you. If God is for you, is for you by being with you. And if he is with you, who can be against you? Who can be? I remember someone was talking to me about something going wrong, and I said to the person, I am not the kind of person, I'm one of those people that you don't fight against. I'm just one of those people that you don't fight against. I said, not because I will go into the realms of the spirit and I will rain down fire against you. I said, it's not in my nature to do that. I will not do that. Sometimes I want to do that, but I just can't do that. It's not my nature to. But I'm just not one of those people you fight against, and neither are you. Why? Why? I'll tell you why. Because when you fight against us, you are fighting against God Almighty. I'm not making it up. It is true. Because if God is for us, who can be against us? We don't need to call down fire from heaven. We don't need to curse anybody. Remember what Jesus said to Paul. He said, it is difficult for you to kick against the pricks. Do you know what the pricks was? This was in Acts. Was it Acts chapter 9 when Paul had his encounter with Jesus that brought him to a place of conversion? Do you know what the pricks are? It is spikes that they used to put to stop cattle from trying to break against the fence. That's one of the things that the pricks was. So you put spikes on the inside so that cattle can, it pricks them once or twice, and so they don't go near the fence any longer. And that's what Jesus was saying, that Paul, as he thought he was persecuting the church, he was kicking against the pricks. So basically he was saying that as much as he thought he was afflicting the church, that he was afflicting himself. See, if you keep kicking the pricks will shake. The fence that have the pricks will shake. But who is bleeding? It's you for kicking it. It's the same thing with us. Kicking against us, it's like kicking against the pricks. We don't need to do anything. Those who do hurt themselves. Why? Because of who we are. But more so, we are who we are because of who is with us and who is in us and who is as us. The purpose of your quiet time is for you to become conscious that he is with you, that he is your Emmanuel. It was what made the difference for Jesus. Look at what it says concerning Jesus. Jesus says in John 14:17, he says, even the Spirit of truth whom the world cannot receive, because it seeth him not, neither knoweth him. But ye know him, for he dwelleth with you and shall be in you. For he dwelleth with you and shall be in you. He dwelleth with you and shall be in you. Oh, he dwells with you. Saints of God, you need to settle that in your consciousness. He dwells with you and he will be in you. Embrace this truth. The more you are conscious of his presence, sin will lose its taste in your mouth. The more you are conscious of his presence. See, it is a lot. See, if you are going to cheat on your wife and your wife is there, you just can't, because she's there. That's why all sin is done in secrecy. The more conscious you are of the presence of God, the less you will be able to violate it. Everything changes. In Acts 10:38, speaking about Jesus, he said how God anointed Jesus with the Holy Ghost and with power, who went about doing good and healing all who were oppressed of the devil, because God was with him. He was conscious that God was with him, and it escalated his ability to walk with God. Oh, Kalibra Halagash Kadika Tuskadia. Saints of God, maybe tomorrow I will bring some more thoughts on how some practical steps you can take to help your mortal, finite mind come into the tangibility of the presence of God. Become a lot more conscious, even though we live in this dimension, to become more conscious of that dimension. I'll try and help you out with that tomorrow. But for today, let this be your confession. God is with me. God is with me. God is with me. Are you listening to me? Settle that. God, when you are in the shower, when you are in the room, when you are driving the car, in the taxi, God is with me. And if he is with me, he is for me. And if he is for me, he is in me. And if he is in me, he stands as me. And if he stands as you, no weapon formed against you can prosper. I'm done. There is so much. Look, I wish I had an hour to do this, but I want you to take what's left of the time to enter into your own personal devotion with the King, your own personal convictions with the King. But everything changes when you become convinced, persuaded, and conscious of the presence of God. I hope you will join me tomorrow as we push this thought a bit further. If this has blessed you, like the stream. Don't just exit, like the stream. It causes, the more people that like it, it causes YouTube, it does something to the algorithms, and YouTube pushes it out for more people to see it. So like the stream as you exit. If it has touched you deeply, share the stream. Be specific, copy the link, send an SMS or WhatsApp to someone and say, click this please, and watch this. Let somebody's life become more conscious of the presence of God. I'll catch you tomorrow on Dawn. Bye for now.